This is the morning brief from the Economic Times.
That misleading ad claim or fake hotel review we've all got taken in by. Unverified star ratings on e-commerce sites, big names all over screens pushing flavored water when we all know what is really getting promoted.
Men will be men. Seagram's Imperial Blue Super Hits music CDs.
That calls for Carlsberg Elephant Club glasses.
And despite global guidelines, junk food ads being targeted directly or indirectly towards children, or that inflated service charge at the restaurant we didn't even realize we are paying. On the morning brief, we like to do deep dives, giving you various views on the news. But today, we make an exception. We get you a single view, but one that has the weight. A bureaucrat who means business by taking on the businesses when they're crossing the lines and setting a code for all to follow. Some much needed, some controversial, and some when we simply say, "Thank God, finally."
I think this is the right time for such interventions. I have written to all the industry bodies and don't indulge into surrogate advertising. Don't advertise liquor in the garb of soda water. We will be issuing the do's and don'ts for social influencers as to what they have to declare, what they can do, what they can't do. During the movie, there were like 20 products which are being very subtly advertised within the movie. So, this is a new challenge for us. We will have to be on our toes. And George Bernard Shaw said, thief is the artist, policeman is just the critic. We have to keep watching for it. We don't want to be prescriptive in this. We want industry to be on board. And of course, you need not agree to everyone, but you should hear everyone before making a policy prescription.
That's Rohit Kumar Singh, Secretary, Department of Consumer Affairs, Ministry of Consumer Affairs, Food and Public Distribution, and IAS officer of the 1989 batch. We have him up close and candid, making his podcast debut. It's Thursday, September 8th. I'm Ratna Bhushan from the Economic Times, and you're listening to this exclusive chat on the Morning Brief. Mr. Singh, thank you very much for joining us on the Morning Brief. It is indeed a pleasure to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for inviting me here.
Mr. Singh, you've been Secretary of Department of Consumer Affairs for about 8 months only and shaken up the status quo on a lot of consumer-facing issues, from exaggerated ad claims to brands targeting children to service charges at restaurants to fake reviews on online platforms. All these reforms have been much needed, are very consumer-friendly, and all are aimed at ease of doing business. My question to you is, should some of these reforms have been brought in earlier?
I don't think so. Everything has its own time, and it depends when you pick up the issues and when the government decides to pick up the issues. So I think, in my opinion, this is the right time to take such issues because e-commerce prevalence has been increasing and more people are shopping online. So I think this is the right time for such interventions.
Okay, tell me, how are the new guidelines on paid celebrity endorsements helping to clamp down on misleading ads? I think it's been about 3 months since these have been in place, right?
So we have seen a lot of cleaning up on kind of advertisements that are being telecast or broadcast. Of course, it is still work in progress. So we are not interested in punishing anyone unnecessarily. So this is sort of a cautionary deterrence that please don't indulge into this. Because if you cross the line, then enforcement will take place. So that is how, and deterrence takes its time to seep in, and I think it's working as what we had expected it to be.
Okay, some of these guidelines are pretty sweeping in nature, like making endorsers and influencers legally accountable or having to provide proof of due diligence or disclosing, equity or profit sharing. So are these enforceable in totality? Some ad agencies, etc., skeptical that how these will be implemented and enforced across such a diverse and huge country.
So this is like the This is like the traffic signals. So you have a red light, a yellow light, and a green light. Some people will still cross the red light. And enforcement in traffic or in police systems can never be 100%. But as I said, these are more in the form of a deterrence. And if you catch someone, make that as an example so that others don't dare do it. It's always a cat and a mouse game in such things. And I think it started working now.
Okay, very interesting. Mr. Singh, tell me, so is there any specific framework? Is there a committee which is being set up to, monitor what is going wrong?
So we don't have a formal committee, but we have a set of officers who keep a constant watch on what is happening on all such platforms, including television and online platforms. In terms of the Consumer Protection Act, the Consumer Protection Authority can be approached by anyone. They can also take action suo motu. Even the government can nudge them to take action. So we, wait for information which is to be provided, which can be provided by anybody. In fact, we get lots of emails, pointing out that this is exaggerated, this is not, this is misleading. So we pick up from those and take appropriate action on that. So it's like an open source thing, and anybody can complain.
Okay, very significant point there, Mr. Singh. There's a set of officers who are closely monitoring this piece, which brings me to advertising for children. You've addressed that too. So, what do these guidelines for children include? I mean, how different are they from existing guidelines which ASCI has in place?
So we must be clear that ASCI is, more in the form of a self-regulatory body, and it is funded by the industry. So obviously it has limitations. So ASCI, of course, it helps us identify things and it points us in the right direction. But when it comes to enforcement, it has to be done by a third party like the government or the CCPA. Now, when we were framing the guidelines 3 months back, we had very wide stakeholder consultations, including from the Ministry of Women and Child Development. And I recall, in a very longish video conference that we had with the officers there, they actually told us the importance. And then we realized that, yes, how important is it to address the issues pertaining to children, because they have young impressionable minds, and they should not be affected by this misleading or even indirectly misleading advertisement. So there are issues like bullying, issues like body shaming, issues like junk food promotion. So we are very wary of these, and I think our guidelines have started taking action on such issues, which were being dealt very indirectly in the previous set of guidelines, in the previous framework.
I just want to take a minute and point out that many multinationals say that they already follow global practices of not advertising to children below 12 years of age. So all these are over and above. They take this several notches higher, right, on how we are, targeting children in ads. So that's a very, very crucial point. Are all these also legally enforceable?
Of course, the entire set of guidelines issued by ASCI are legally enforceable. I have written to all the industry bodies and the wine industry and the advertising industry that, don't indulge into surrogate advertising. Don't advertise liquor in the garb of CDs or soda water. Don't advertise for gutka in the garb of flavored elaichi or soft. So don't indulge, and don't use celebrities for this, because, as I said, when you use a celebrity, it further accentuates the extent of misleading, because especially the youth, as I said, they have impressionable minds. So the adverse effects get further accentuated. We, of course, appreciate if the multinationals are themselves adhering to such guidelines, when it comes to children. So we are very happy to hear that. But as it happens in all other laws and regulations, if somebody crosses the line, if somebody is not adhering, if somebody is trying to take, advantage of the system, then of course action will be taken.
Surrogate advertising is a great point that you've made, because even in all the cricket matches, broadcasts and all, we see some of the biggest, names. They are promoting water and all kinds of elaichis and all, which is actually surrogate for various tobacco related brands. So that is very, very important.
We've cautioned them, and we say that please fall in line, otherwise we'll start taking stern action. So, like in any other system, we first want to advise and caution them, and then if they don't conform, then of course we'll have to take action. That is how it works. One more point which relates to one of your previous questions that I probably missed answering is, this social influencer thing. People have 50,000, 1 lakh, 5 lakh followers, and they are using money to endorse products. So we have just created a new framework. It is pending for approval. Once it is approved, we will be issuing the do's and don'ts for social influencers as to what they have to declare, what they can do, what they can't do. So that is also in the office.
Okay, that is also a very, that's of huge consumer interest again, because like there are thousands of claims being made by these social influencers, and one just doesn't know what is genuine, what is paid. So, yeah, so when can we expect that?
Um, Very soon, maybe
Okay,
within this month.
okay. All right. So then this would iron out the challenges of implementation also, right? This would address a lot of that.
Right. But this thing, as I said, this is a cat and a mouse game, and things keep changing so fast that we also have to adapt our systems to those. For example, I just saw a very popular new movie on the Netflix, and there, I'll also give you the name. It was called Darlings, having a very prominent actress in the lead role. And
Yes,
we
yes.
saw that during the movie, there were like 20 products which were being very subtly advertised within the movie. So, this is a new challenge for us, and how to handle this, so we'll come up with something to handle those. We will have to be on our toes. As George Bernard Shaw said, thief is the artist, policeman is just the critic. So we have to keep watching for it.
Okay, so product placement in movies would be another issue that you're examining,
Right,
looking at. Right.
right.
Okay, very interesting. Mr. Singh, tell me, how do you deal with industry pushback? As you've probably guessed, I'm referring to the service charge clampdown you introduced 3 months back, a much needed move which every consumer in the country welcomed wholeheartedly. But then the NRAI and the hotel industry, they went to the Delhi court, and the court said hotels and restaurants can levy a service charge, and at least that's the status till the next hearing. And the industry bodies too say that, it's a global practice and they pass it on to their staff and all. Is there a middle ground on the matter? What is the resolution to this?
So I don't think there is any middle ground on things which are wrong. If something is wrong, it is wrong. And it is not that we surprised the industry. We had a long set of consultations with them in person on VC. We had at least 5, 6 meetings with them, and we advised them that this is not done. Service charge, the phrase itself, appears that there is some legitimacy to it, there is some legal backing, and so we said you can't use the term gratuity and tip, and this is after the meal has happened, and if your patron is happy, then of course he can pay. We have done it several times that we've asked restaurants to remove the charge and paid the same amount to the waiter as gratuity or tip. But you cannot pre-print and bring it to the person when he's about to pay, and then it becomes very awkward because people generally go with guests or family, and then you don't want to fight with the waiter or the manager on things. So we said you cannot pre-print it. This is not something which is legitimate. This is driven by the satisfaction of the customer over the meal or the service, and then it should be his. You cannot fix it at X percentage, and that too, some are charging 5, 10, 12. So there's nothing like predetermined satisfaction. So it is post the event, post the meal, and it should be in form of, it is a choice and you can't force. So that is our stand, and we will continue with the stand in the courts. I think the whole business of that being used to fund the waiters or the people who work in the kitchen, that is bogus. And as our honorable minister also said in a press conference, if you want to pay your staff better, increase the prices. There is no restriction of increasing the menu prices in a restaurant. That is open to them. You increase the price, but don't use this additionality, as an excuse to pay your staff better. That is not done. Nobody does it.
On that note, I'd like to draw your attention to another consumer friendly reform. In May, the ministry set up a committee to detect fake reviews on e commerce websites. And fake reviews is something we've all been victims of. So, which are the sectors the committee is looking into?
Oh, we are looking into all sectors, buying goods, services, everything. So we want to make a generic, robust framework to handle this. And this is something on which industry is also with us, because they're also worried, because it is used both in favor and against a particular industry by the competitors. So we need to have a framework, and I discussed with my counterparts in EU and the US, and everybody is worried on that. In fact, we had a meeting in Geneva last month, and when I broached this subject in my speech there, all countries said, yes, this is a big problem and we need to work unitedly on this. So they asked us to prepare a framework and then you can share it and then we can have consensus on that. So a lot of meetings have taken place. We are moving on it. So I think the main issue is, traceability and legitimacy of the review. Whether you have availed, whether you have purchased the good or not, you write a review. Whether you have eaten in the restaurant or not, you are reviewing the restaurant. So one is traceability, whether you are actually the user, and the other is, what is the legitimacy of that. So we are working on it.
And this would also include like hotel stays, travel, everything, right?
Yeah, so hotel and travel, you got it right. They are the biggest, I may use the word defaulters on this. When I was talking to my counterpart in European Union, she said that they had done a survey in March and they realized that 65% of e-commerce website in the EU did not have a framework to handle fake reviews. So that is what triggered us, and we also realized that this is a global problem, and we must start working on it.
That's huge. So the framework that you're talking about, Mr. Singh, when do you expect it to be out? Because like it'll be very exhaustive, right? And like it'll cover a lot of sectors, like you mentioned.
Right. So the first draft is ready, and then we will hold again consultations with the industry because we don't want to be prescriptive in this. We want industry to be on board because it has to be acceptable to the maximum possible set of stakeholders. So we don't do anything unilaterally. I mean, it's my philosophy that we should talk to everyone, and of course you need not agree to everyone, but you should hear everyone before making a policy prescription.
Of course, that's a great thing to do. I just want to ask you, what is the update on the one charger policy for devices? That is also that is hugely ease of doing business for all of us. But again, there's been some industry pushback on that. So, two questions. Do you think the concerns are valid? And could this lead to delay in implementation of the policy?
So this is an issue which, of course, will opposed by some in the industry, not all. So we are looking at it from 2 points of view. One is, of course, if you recall, the Prime Minister has given a call for LIFE, LIFE, the lifestyle for environment. And there's a huge amount of e-waste being generated, which probably can be avoided. And every household has 5, 6, 7, 8, 10 chargers, depending on how many people live there. So by having, the single charger or at least two set of chargers, because India is a huge market for still feature phone in the industry, and feature phones are low cost phones. And by having, let's say, a USB-C charging port there, maybe the price will be pushed up. So we are very wary of that. We don't want to push up the prices of the feature phones. So maybe we can settle for, two kinds of ports and chargers, one for feature phones and one for smartphones. But we can't have 10 chargers for 10 smartphones. So we're working on that. We had discussions with IIT professors and very senior people in industry. We're working on it. And like you said, it is a little difficult. We hope we'll make it happen.
All right. That's a whole lot of reforms within a very short duration, Mr. Singh. What can we expect next?
So I'm very aggressively focusing on two other things. One is our National Consumer Helpline, which is number 1915. And by making it smarter, meaning enabling it through artificial intelligence and machine learning and making it omni-channel, we have achieved some progress, but I still wanted to go to the next orbit. For example, now we get about 100,000 complaints every month on the National Consumer Helpline. So we're making it more, enabling it further with advanced technology, like I said, AI, ML, so that it becomes easier for the consumer to lodge the complaint. Because we don't want anybody to be deterred by the complexity of the process and not lodge the complaint. So we want it to be an easy process. And we are also enabling it in 8, 10 languages. Even now we accept 10 languages so that you don't have to be deterred by having to be forced to speak in English or Hindi. You can lodge your complaint. We have operators who can speak 10 languages. The other thing is the courts our consumer courts and the number of cases pending in that courts. So it's about 6 lakhs now at all the 3 levels, the national level, the state level, and the district level. We had a conference with the judges, and we are also helping them with technology, trying to develop tools which convert speech to text so that their dependence on their stenos and the PAs is reduced and their efficacy of resolving the cases is faster. We are also looking and planning to do a mega, lok adalats where on a specific Saturday, and we are in touch with the Honorable Justices of Supreme Court, that on a particular day, they resolve, let's say 1 lakh cases. So we reduce the pendency from 6 lakh. It is possible. And we have categorized the cases, and we realize that there are a huge number of cases for banking, insurance, real estate, e-commerce. So we will categorize them. We'll send electronically contact the people who are aggrieved parties, and they don't have to come to the court. They can on video conference, because many of these disputes are small. They can be resolved by mediation and advice. As I said, the 2 things we are working aggressively on is, one is improving the National Consumer Helpline, and the other is reducing the pendency of the cases in our consumer courts.
So both will be massive and much needed reforms. I mean, it's phenomenal that, the ministry is working in this direction, because they'll really be deal changers. So we're sure all of this is going to be rolled out very soon. Thank you very much for this very candid and very insightful conversation.
Thank you, Ratna. Thank you for inviting me here.
The Central Consumer Protection Authority, or the CCPA, has never been this active before. From separate expert groups to monitoring misleading ad claims to legally enforceable curbs on surrogate advertising to weeding out fake reviews or unverified star ratings on hotels, airlines, and online stores to clamping down on forced service charges at restaurants. It's all happening, and we consumers surely have a lot to look forward to as the government's nose tightens on various issues which so far have been overlooked. Hotels and restaurants, though, say service charge is something that's levied across world markets and that they anyway declare upfront what they charge at their stores and menus. We'll be watching out closely, and we're sure so will you. That's all for today. We're signing off now and hope you enjoyed listening to the episode. I'm Ratna Bhushan, and you've been listening to Brace for More Norms, Candid Caution from the Consumer Affairs Secretary on the Morning Brief. This episode was produced by Vinay Joshi from the Economic Times, sound editor Rajas Naik from the Economic Times, executive producers Anupriya Bahadur and Arijit Barman from the Economic Times. Do share the episode on your social media networks if you enjoyed listening to it. The Morning Brief airs every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. Do tune in to ET Play, our latest platform for all audio content, including the Morning Brief. All external sound clips used in this episode belong to the respective owners. Credits are mentioned in the description.